the best evidence essentially of this international type of, like, let's say the cabal's conspiracy in terms of the actual assassination itself, what would you point to? I mean, like, obviously the film JFK points to things like just the magic bullet theory is like, it's an impossibility. The whole, as you say, Oswald being sort of, sighted at these certain places, and probably wasn't him in Mexico City. I mean, there's all kinds of problems with the official narrative, right? About once you start poking holes in that, you say, okay, if there's most likely at least two shooters, that's a conspiracy, and then why is it being covered up? So, what do you think is the best evidence, really, that of the conspiracy for anyone that's still skeptical about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would, and people still are, and that's a psychological thing, but for me, and this is why I wrote the book, for me as a young teenager or early teens, it always bugged me when I was old enough to really understand the JFK assassination. Because I was born in 65, so I missed it by 2 years. But I was experiencing the ripple effects, right? Vietnam, Lyndon Johnson, Watergate, Nixon's, all that nonsense, and all the other assassinations. I was young, but it was my formative years, so I was seeing things and hearing things. But what would always bug me was that, well, wait a minute, Jack Ruby walks into a police station, walks right up to Oswald, shoots him and kills him. Oswald can never go to trial. He doesn't get his day in court. He can never speak again because he'd already said, I'm a patsy. So doesn't that raise a red flag? Again, just objective thinking wise, critical thinking wise, that alone makes it a conspiracy. Because there's no way Jack Ruby did that because he loved the Kennedy family and he wanted to spare Jackie a trial. That's nonsense. It's nonsense. Doesn't make any sense. He was mobbed through and through. He had connections in New Orleans, Jack Ruby. He knew Lee Harvey Oswald because they were seen together in New Orleans and they were seen together in Dallas. They knew each other. They were all part of that mob. So, Lee Harvey Oswald was a New Orleans boy, right? His mom dated Carlos Marcello's chauffeur. They knew he used to run errands for Carlos Marcello. So and then he joined the military, got an intelligence. So he knew the mob in New Orleans. He also was part of the intelligence community. So you have Jack Ruby. Then you have what was going on in New Orleans in the summer of '63. If you really take a really long look at that, deep dive into that, it obviously becomes a conspiracy. And then you mentioned the magic bullet theory, which was the most ridiculous theory ever put forth in the history of humankind. I mean, it was so ridiculous. And people bought it. And people bought it either because they didn't want to believe there was mostly because they didn't want to believe there was a conspiracy, or they didn't buy it, but they just like, well, I mean, what are we going to do? Can't do anything about it, right? So those three things, I would say. Now, if you dig deeper as well, the mysterious deaths, why are people being threatened? Why would someone threaten a person who says that they saw someone shooting from the grassy knoll? And then why would the Secret Service or the FBI or someone in a suit say, no, you didn't? Or it's like, well, yeah, I did. And it's like, no, you didn't. And it's intimidation. Why? Why would they do that? So if you take, and it gets deeper, right? There's so much. And then you have Oswald. Well, who really was Oswald? And then when you take a deeper dive into who he was as a person, he wasn't a lone nut, disgruntled dude. He wasn't. He was a intelligence operative who was really good at spycraft, including photography. And we know this. We know what was all the cameras that were found. We know that, some of the things that people said he was doing in New Orleans. So you take all these things combined and it strains credulity, right? So you're like, as a critical thinker, sorry, man, it's not working for me. And all I need to know is that Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald. And I know there's some type of conspiracy. I don't know exactly who's involved, but someone else is. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's such a complicated. Spycraft is that way. It's designed for diversion, right? It's designed for misdirection, and you know, it's like the whole Oswald going to Russia story. It's like, you know, if you really believe that this guy just like defects to Russia, marries a Russian woman, and then comes back and like isn't being monitored in any way, like if it was just a defector, you know, like you don't think he would be like under some kind of surveillance, right?
Exactly. And he comes back with a Russian wife, and it's all okay, right?
Exactly. A Russian daughter of a general. Oh wow, that isn't someone you want to debrief. That isn't someone that you want to. Hey, maybe she's a spy.